Actually, staff, faculty, and students are all required to take training every year. How the delivery is presented is a little bit different for each of the populations, but effective this year, everyone will be taking training every year.
Regent Perez.
Forgive me for not having the source, but I read a report about a month ago that the experience with these kinds of trainings has not proven to be what one would expect in a variety of settings, in both academic and in professional settings, that there hasn't been the type of decline in unwanted activity, whether it's violence or harassment, that one would have previously assumed with the training. I don't know if you know what I'm referring to.
I do, yes.
And what can we glean from that critique in helping us design a slightly different approach?
It's a really good question. And as you know, the way that people act is, and their values really are established at a very early young age. So for us to change someone's perspective on respect for a human being is very, very difficult. So when I talk about prevention, it's more in the person who is having something about to be attempted on them, where they know what to do and bystanders know what to do, versus trying to change, honestly, attitudes and opinions. Although I will say that while there hasn't yet been some real efforts that have actually seen changes in people's attitudes towards what they can and can't do to another human being, I will say that there is some targeted efforts that are happening in different populations, including the Greek community. The national organizations have taken a step towards making sure that there's training and education. We have also had discussions about those around the grade school and high school education, because honestly, that's where it needs to start.
And then a separate question, which you may get to somewhere else. The numbers I've looked at in previous years indicated that the greatest incident on student unwanted sexual activity was when the victim was a freshman. Is that still, and here's why that's of concern to me. If the majority of the mandatory training that we're doing for students is in that orientation period, but the experience is also indicating that that's the year in which we have the greatest concentration of unacceptable behavior, I'm wondering what that tells us. And clearly times of transition are difficult for everybody, creates additional vulnerabilities and the like, but it seems to me that that is a stark indicator that we need to significantly shake up our interventions.
You're absolutely right. I mean, you couldn't say it better, honestly. That is a very targeted year for students who come to the organization of all gender, of all races. I mean, it does not touch just women. So I'll be very honest that that has been our key focus in the undergraduate arena especially, is any incoming student, whether they are a transfer student or a freshman. And it is true that we can't just do it once. We really need to sustain it through the year, but we have made an effort to say all undergraduates especially will get training in their first 6 weeks, and it will be in person. But we then supplement that all through the year through different smaller groups and one-on-ones and other activities.
But does the data suggest that the perpetrators are also disproportionately freshmen, or are the freshmen disproportionately targets of students who've been on campus for multiple years?
That's a really good question. I can't speak to, unfortunately, in this arena, I have to be honest that the data is not good data. Not just at UC, but across industry. Again, for us to do comparisons is very, very difficult, which is what we're trying to establish in our efforts as well. You are so right to say that it is not necessarily a freshman student who is the perpetrator, or as we call the respondent. And in fact, it may really be that it's those that are more experienced or more mature, we might say. It's hard to say, and what we're trying to do is collect more information so that we can get a sense of that baseline. Really good questions.
And I would just add to your point is that one of the efforts in underlying all of these, but certainly sexual violence, sexual assault, in this next year is increased education and training. And we're revising our online courses. We're going to have a series of live webinars that will focus on specific topics. Because one of the things we do know is that if training is going to be effective, it has to be kind of repeated, changed, and have different experiences. We're working with risk services to provide live theater performances on the campuses, which have been very well received. Just a whole variety of different ways to make sure that we get the message out to students and faculty and staff as well too. And then the plan is to have a full update on this topic at a later board meeting.
And one more question, if I may.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
No.
Regent Makarechian.
As I recall, we had this discussion a couple of years ago, and there was a discussion to requiring all the freshmen to take a course for a couple of credits or something. Where are we with that?
In regards to actual getting credits for the courses that they might take, it's really school dependent. There is a whole process for courses to get credits and to be part of curriculum that relates to the academic arena. And so where schools have worked individually, they have been able to do that. We have not been able to do that as a system.
I thought that was something that the Office of President was going to sort of push through and make it a requirement, because I mean this discussion has been going on for about 3 or 4 years now.
There is a requirement for the training itself, but the course credit piece is the piece that's subject to the different processes related to academics. So,
is there a timing for that?
I have no specific timing related to that. I can ask Provost Dorr if there's an effort system-wide. But I know that from our effort, we really stuck to just trying to get the training done, make sure that it was mandated, affected all individuals, and then from a credit perspective, that has happened individually.
I mean, we talked about this, that, voluntary, information is one thing, but requiring somebody to actually take a course and pass a test is another thing. It sticks in your mind. So
that's true.
It would be nice if you let us know where that's going.
Be happy to do that. And just so you're clear, when it comes to enforcement of this training, all campuses do reg holds. So a student who has not taken the training cannot proceed to register for classes. That is an absolute thing that does occur, but I know you're talking about something different related to the actual course credit.
Thank you.
And one of the key elements, and I'll move on to Clary, of the sexual violence, sexual assault this year is that the policy that went into effect in January basically makes all UC employees responsible employees, which means mandatory reporting for sexual violence, sexual assault, sexual harassment. And so we're doing a lot of education and training around that piece because it really does increase the breadth of who has to report in line of their job duty, which we think is an important element.